Today, we're going to break down the story of one of the most damaging cyber espionage attacks in U.S. history. This is the OPM breach, a digital heist that laid bare the deepest secrets of millions of Americans. Let's just start with a number, because it's staggering. 21.5 million. That's how many people had their personal, incredibly detailed background check files stolen. And we're not just talking about government employees here. This number includes their spouses, their kids, their friends, even old college roommates who were listed as references. So I want you to really think about that. What if every mistake you ever made, every personal struggle, every relationship you've ever had, what if all of that was put into a file, stolen, and then handed directly to a foreign intelligence agency? That is exactly what we're dealing with here. To get why this was such a catastrophe, you have to understand the target. We're talking about the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, OPM for short. Now think of them as the HR department for the entire federal government. They handle hiring, benefits, and most importantly, the security clearance process. And at the absolute center of this whole story is one document, the SF-86. It's this 127-page form that anyone who wants a national security job has to fill out. And I mean, it is basically your entire life story on paper. For a spy agency, getting a hold of these forms, well, that's the crown jewel of intelligence. And when I say your life story, I'm not kidding. We're talking about social security numbers, all your financial history, including any debt, every foreign country you've ever visited, psychological evaluations, any past drug use. It even has info on your family, your friends, and your roommates. It's a gold mine for blackmail, for recruiting spies, or for identifying American agents overseas. The impact was just devastating. The CIA literally had to pull agents out of China because this data gave their adversaries a roadmap to identify who was working undercover. The breach was basically a who's who of the entire U.S. national security world. So the big question, right? How did this even happen? How did hackers get their hands on something so valuable? Well, the answer starts with a really important concept in cybersecurity. The attack was made possible because of something called a zero-day. In this case, it wasn't a flaw in OPM software, but a brand new piece of malicious software, or malware, that was so customized that no antivirus program in the world knew it existed yet. That means the defenders had literally 0 days to prepare for it. It was invisible. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine a thief discovers a tiny, secret flaw in a very common type of lock. The company that makes the lock has no idea the flaw is there. They've had 0 days to fix it, so the thief can just waltz right in the front door while everyone else thinks they're totally secure. That's a 0 day. So what was this invisible key the attackers used? It was a custom-built piece of malware, a really nasty type of spyware called a remote access Trojan, or RAT. But the truly brilliant part was how they snuck it in. This malware was called PlugX, and it was incredibly powerful. Once it was inside a network, the attackers could do anything they wanted. They could run commands, they could record every single keystroke to steal passwords, and of course, they could browse and copy any file they could find. It was basically the perfect tool for a heist like this. So how do you get a weapon like that past the guards? Easy. You disguise it. The attackers hid their malware inside a file that looked like it belonged to the McAfee antivirus software running on the system. It's a technique called DLL sideloading, but really you can just think of it as a wolf in antivirus clothing. It was designed to be ignored. And here's a little detail that's just wild. It gives you a sense of the attacker's personality. They set up a fake website for their malware to phone home to, opmsecurity.org. And when they registered it, they used the names Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. Yep. Captain America and Iron Man. It was a little joke that actually helped investigators tie them to other attacks later on. Now, what makes this whole thing truly terrifying isn't just how they got in, it's how long they stayed. The attackers were quietly moving around inside OPM's network, completely undetected for more than a year and a half. The whole thing unfolded in 2 ways. The first one was just for recon. They got in and stole the network blueprints. But the second wave, that's when the real damage happened. They got a password that was stolen from a government contractor, and they used it to log in through a VPN. Why? Because there was no multi-factor authentication. From there, they took over a key server and pretty much had the keys to the entire kingdom. So for 17 months, they were just in there, packaging up all that data to sneak it out. And the discovery? It wasn't some brilliant cybersecurity analyst who found them. No. It happened completely by accident during a sales demo for a new security product. The tool just happened to flag some weird traffic. So, what can we possibly learn from a disaster of this scale? Well, the official investigation basically boiled it down to a few fundamental security failures. And the tragic part is, they were all preventable. Okay, lesson number 1. It is the most important one, and it's so simple. Always use multi-factor authentication. All that means is that a password by itself isn't enough to log in. You need a second thing, like a code from your phone, to prove it's really you. I mean, this quote from the congressional report just says it all. The attackers didn't need some brilliant, complex hack to steal all that data. They just logged in with a stolen password. A simple prompt for a second factor could have stopped the entire thing cold. Lesson number 2 is all about trust. See, OPM's own defenses were bypassed because the attackers didn't hit them head-on, at least not at first. They went after a weaker link in the chain, a third-party contractor. They stole their password and walked right in through a trusted door. Your security is only as strong as your weakest partner. And finally, the last line of defense. Let's say the bad guys get past everything and they're inside your network. You still have one last chance to protect the data itself, and that's called encryption. It basically scrambles the information so it's complete gibberish to anyone without the key. Unbelievably, incredibly sensitive data, like social security numbers, were just sitting there in plain text, not encrypted at all. The reason the OPM director gave to Congress? The systems were too old to handle encryption. That meant once the attackers were in, stealing that data was as simple as dragging a file to their desktop. So when you put it all together, the OPM breach wasn't some high-tech, unstoppable attack. It was really a story about years of ignored warnings from auditors, running on ancient systems, and just a total failure to implement basic, fundamental security practices. And that really leaves us with one final, sobering thought. Multi-factor authentication, supply chain security, data encryption. These aren't new, exotic ideas. We know how to solve every single problem that led to this breach. The real question this whole story forces us to ask is, are we actually doing it?